Nick Bosa is about as complete as they come.
Arnold off play action. Steps up in the pocket, wrapped up and thrown down. Bosa with pressure again, and he's got it. Blount in trouble, though. Bosa there, sacks him.
Mayfield knocked backwards and brought down at the one by Nick Bosa.
This is an entire podcast dedicated to DN prospect Nick Bosa. We break down his game, potential, and NFL team fits, and we interview some people who know him best, including his parents, his high school coach, Buckeyes head coach Ryan Day, teammates of his at Ohio State, and of course, we interview Bosa himself.
All right, so we got time. We're going to get to all those interviews in just a few moments, Buck. But at the top here, I thought it's important that we get our opinions out there on Bosa, what we see when we watch him, maybe a ceiling floor conversation and a comparison, which it seems like there's a pretty easy comparison to make when you consider the last name, where he's going to be picked in the skill set.
What I'll say about Nick Bosa to me is a skilled player at the point of attack. He is really taking the tips that he's learned from the family business with his older brother, his dad, his uncle, all playing in the league, and he's put him in practice. When I watch him, I love the energy, the effort. I like the hand skills. He's a relentless competitor, and he consistently wins at the line of scrimmage. And for everything that people talk about him in terms of being a pass rusher, I think he's stout and steady against the run game. And so when you're looking at complete players, Nick Bosa is about as complete as they come.
Yeah, and when I got a chance to see him play live last year, not this season, but last year in the Cotton Bowl against USC, Buck, he not only was the best player on the field, he dominated the game. I mean, at USC and Sam Darnold couldn't do anything. He just completely neutralized their ability to function offensively, and not just as a pass rusher. He's very disruptive in the run game as well. I think he's got the versatility. If you wanted to reduce him inside, he could do some of that as well. But I like him coming off the edge. Now, he had the core muscle injury this year that cost him the majority of the season. And I know it wasn't much, but in the 3 games you watched him before he got hurt, Buck, again, best player on the field. He was dominant. He was on his way, in my opinion, to having a huge year. He would have had well into double digits in sacks and the zillion tackles for loss, all that stuff. We'll get into team fits a little bit later on in the episode, but let's get to some of these interviews first. I know you and our buddy Lance Zierlein had a chance to talk with Nick Bosa's parents, John and Cheryl Bosa, and if those who don't know, his dad, John Bosa, former first-round pick, played 3 seasons in the NFL, so it's not just Joey. You've also got his dad, John, and his mother, Cheryl, who's very interesting to talk to. So here's your interviews, you and Lance sitting down with John Bosa and Cheryl Bosa.
Just kind of talk about the family business and how your kids got started in football.
When they were younger, I tried my darndest to keep them away from football. I had them hitting golf balls and tennis balls and playing soccer and baseball and hoop. And as a dad, of course, I was a little nervous about starting too young and the toll it takes on the body. And they were throwing fits and wanted to get into the youth league. And from the day I put the pads on them and watched them walk to their respective fields, I was like, oh boy, I'm done.
You've had to drop some wise words on them to kind of get them going when it comes to being dominant players at the line of scrimmage.
For me, I may have given them a little bit of some talks about how to dislike an O-lineman, but they really have they really deserve all the credit because they're 21 and 23, and they're just constantly driven to be better, and that's really hard to teach.
People like to talk about edge a lot with players, but Nick is interesting because I can see teams saying, wait a minute, we've got some different things we can do with him in terms of alignment now.
Oh, I think he can rush from all over the line of scrimmage for sure. His freshman year at St. Thomas Aquinas, Joey was his senior year, and they both started on the D-line. Joey was 270 playing on the end. Nick was about 210 playing inside. And St. Thomas plays against some serious football teams, some O-lines that are averaging 265, 270. And Nick, if you look at his high school highlight, never got driven off the ball from inside.
Take us through that core muscle injury. What did it, what went through? What were some of the conversations that you guys had after the injury in terms of how to approach it?
The emotional swing that I had in Texas Stadium, watching him a strip sack for a touchdown, and then a couple series later, he's down on the field, and it's a dad's, fear when you're watching your kids play football. And the news was what it was, and it was heartbreaking, a very difficult decision. But it was the absolute best thing to do for him.
When they started playing ball, could you envision these guys becoming what they become as football players and young people?
You know, oddly enough, I could envision it, especially with Nick. He was one of those kids that at 7, 8 years old, he stood out in the pack. And you knew there was something going on. Even parents from like the visiting teams and things would come up to me and John and say, wow, what's happening here?
How much pressure do you think he felt growing up, kind of following in the footsteps of not only his older brother, but his dad and his uncle?
Our family's not like that. We don't put that pressure on. I mean, if we put that individual pressure on, I'm not really aware of it.
Between Nick and Joy, which one was the mama's boy? And which one is the mama's boy?
Nick was the mama's boy.
It's always the youngest. It's always
Yeah.
how it is.
Yeah. And Joey used to call him the mama's boy, too. And when Nick was little, he'd say, I don't care. So what? I'm a mama's boy.
That's unbelievable.
We had a feature with him with his social media. You can tell he's not just, while he is all into football, clearly, he's got a lot of different things going on as well from a personality standpoint.
Oh, yeah. He's always loved animals. He's, empathetic. He's kind. He's gentle. He's a cool guy. I really like him.
That's why he's the mama's boy. You see that? That's why he's the mama's boy.
That's why he's the mama's boy.
That's right.
The big takeaway from both of them, these guys loved football, and Nick in particular loved just playing the game, always wanted to be great at it, was super competitive, always played up. And the fact that they've been able to kind of like grow him up in the family business is really interesting. And he's been very, very successful. I think he'll continue to be successful because I think he understands the artistry that's needed to be a dominant player at the point of attack.
Well, being that you're now a head high school football coach, I know that you appreciate the importance that a high school coach has in your development, not only as a player but as a person. And so we go back and look at Nick Bosa in his high school career there at St. Thomas Aquinas. We need to go talk to his coach, and that's something that you and our buddy Len Zerline were recently able to do. Sit down with St. Thomas Aquinas head coach Roger Harriet.
Nick was an extraordinary talent, as everybody knows, but the most impressive aspect of Nick is he's a great role model. He has a strong presence, and he wants to make sure that he's meeting all expectations, not only on the field of play, but more importantly off the field as a self-motivated, family-oriented individual. So he's just a joy to have around. He's a team-oriented guy. He has an infectious personality. He's the type of guy that when you're going through your tenure with him, you know you're gonna miss him. He's a guy that you don't want to see leave.
At least to us, when we've dealt with him, he's a little more quiet. But I know as we talked to his mother and father, and they said he is a guy who is going to be may not be as loud, but he certainly leads by example. Can you speak on that and what you saw in the locker room and then on the field when the lights were on?
He's certainly the type of guy that lets his actions speak for him. I wouldn't go so far to call Nick an introvert. He's not an extrovert either, but he's extremely sociable. He's not a flamboyant individual, and I think that's where some people are confused. But he does have a charisma to him, and his personality is one that you enjoy being around.
In thinking about expectations, if he did happen to be the first overall pick, and there are a lot of expectations that come with being that, how do you think he'll handle the weight of those expectations?
I think he's going to revolutionize the way these individuals conduct themselves on and more importantly off the field. And I think at this point right now, the National Football League could use a boost in character oriented individuals like Nicky Bosa.
Always great when we talk to these high school coaches.
Always great. The high school coach sets the foundation for who these kids will eventually become on and off the field. And so to get that perspective certainly paints the picture on Nick Bosa and kind of gives us an idea what teams could be getting when he walks in the doors, walks into that locker room.
So we're going to go top 5 nationally high school programs, Buck. We put them in that class.
They're one of the best. You talk about having terrific personnel, not only players but coaches. They do a great job down there in South Florida.
All right, let's keep this train moving here. What do we got coming up next, Buck?
We talked to the high school head coach. You naturally want to talk to the college head coach. You and Aditi Kikabwala had a chance to catch up with Ryan Day, the head coach of Ohio State, at the Pro Day. I talked to Coach Day at the Combine. Let's take a listen to what he had to say about Nick Bosa.
How would you compare him to his brother?
So I wasn't really here with Joey, so I don't know him as well. But from what I've heard about him, he is different than his brother. What I really learned to appreciate with Nick, especially in those first three games and in the preseason, getting to know him really well, is he really cares about his teammates. He cares about relationships. He's a thoughtful person, and so the guys on the team missed him this year. And when he came back for the bowl game and guys saw him, we embraced him and missed him. But his EQ's high, and he's a great kid.
What makes Nick Bosa different than some of the other guys that have been around?
Going up against him every single day when we were on offense, it was hard. He was hard to block. He would ruin practice all the time. Had a hard time blocking him, and especially third down drill and things like that. Very, very explosive and quick. But I think the thing that Larry Johnson, our defensive line coach, did a great job of is he really went back and watched the film. And I think he said on the 500th clip, he found something last year to get him a little bit better. And that's the way Nick is. He wants to get better. He knows he's very good. He knows he's one of the best in the game, but he keeps working to become great.
He has obviously had a terrific career at Ohio State, but he's playing kind of in the shadows of his older brother, Joey. How do you think he is motivated by the fact that this is the family business? Everyone ahead of him has been a first-round pick. How do you think that kind of plays into and taps into the motivation that he displays on the field?
I think it gives him confidence. I feel like I don't think he puts pressure on himself to do anything else that some of his family members have done. I think it gives him confidence that he knows it can be done.
Well, I love getting the feedback there, from Coach Day. I know he wishes he had Bosa for the remainder of the season. Didn't have that early season injury, Buck. Great to talk to coaches, but I also enjoy talking to the players. And Dwayne Haskins, the quarterback there at Ohio State, gave us some great intel on Nick Bosa last week at the Buckeyes Pro Day. I was down there with Aditi Kinkabwala. And you interviewed his fellow defensive lineman, Draymond Jones. Of course, we both caught up with wide receiver Paris Campbell. So all these teammates, they're going to help paint the picture for us here of Nick Bosa. And here's the conversations we had with Dwayne Haskins, Draymond Jones, and Paris Campbell.
What was it like in practice? I mean, did it get to the point where it was so disruptive you guys had to kind of back him down? Or give us a Bosa story.
So, honestly, Bosa was good, really good.
That was a little tepid.
But we have a third down period, which is sort of straight rush, straight blitzes.
Yeah.
And that period is the worst period of practice because they just pin their nose back, they know it's pass, and you got him and Chase Young and Draymond Jones, and then the linebackers coming in. It was worse my freshman year. We had him, we had Hubbard, we had Tyquan Lewis, we had Jalen Holmes, and it's like, can I even get a pass off? So, I mean, to have Nick is so dynamic, and he gets off the ball so fast. It's like he's almost unblockable at points in practice. So, I mean, good thing only gets like 2 reps to the ones in certain series, so I don't get to see him all the time, but he's a freak athlete.
Tell me a little about Bosa, playing with him, what you've been able to learn from him.
He's a special type of talent. I mean, he has the ability to see things faster and pick up things faster than any other player would. I mean, it's more so just the behind-the-scenes work that he prepared for so far to him being dominant on the field. I mean, you just see him being crazy and him being, lively, special player. But on the back end, he has a unique routine that not a lot of guys have.
When you think about Nick Bosa, what comes to mind?
Unstoppable. That's the first word. That honestly, being an offensive player, but just having Nick around, I used to go back and watch practice film and him just go through one-on-ones, and it was honestly some of the most amazing stuff that I've ever seen on the football field. Man, he's elusive, super athletic, and just to be that big and be able to move the way he does, he's unstoppable. I don't think I've ever seen him get blocked, in game or in practice. So he's just really unstoppable guy.
Is there any story? Has anybody ever talked trash to Nick or got him stirred up a little bit? Because I do the Charger games during the fall, Paris, and I know Joey is just very even keel. Has anybody been able to get under his skin? Has he ever gotten in a fight or anything?
No, not once. Him and Joey are kind of one and the same, man. They're the same people, same guy. And even if you did talk smack to him, they probably just look at you, line up for the next rep and beat you. So it would be worthless.
Well, Buck, I think the theme, I would say, in kind of putting this all together, what we've talked coaches, talked with players, is kind of dominance. You hear that word, just a very physically dominant player there in Nick Bosa.
Yeah, very dominant. And the thing that I really love when you talk to people is they talk about his overall competitiveness. That is important. That's one of the underrated qualities that we look for in blue chip players. He loves to compete, and I think that will serve him well. On a team full of alphas, he's the ultimate alpha. I think a team that gets Nick Bosa is going to be really excited about what he brings to the table.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think he can take over a football game. I really think he has that type of ability. He's a special talent. It's always a pleasure to get a chance to talk with teammates, and that's what they do in the scouting process. For those who don't know, when you're doing your background on players, some of the best sources for background on players is their teammates. You find out a lot about a guy when you find out somebody that's practiced with them all the time. You get some tremendous insight like we just got there from those guys.
Yeah, tremendous insight. Really excited about it. But yeah, you can get all the insight that you want from teammates, but sometimes you want to go to the player himself. He's one of the best players in the draft. I had a chance to talk with him at the Super Bowl. DJ and Aditi Kiwala caught up with him last week at the Ohio State Pro Day. Let's just go to the man of the hour, Nick Bosa. What would you say the strong points are of your game are?
I think pass rushing obviously jumps out. Just having good technique. I got good power, speed. Kind of like to switch up my moves, keep people guessing.
Who are some of the guys that you've watched outside of your brother that you may have patterned your game after?
I like to watch Aaron Donald, what he's doing from a 3 technique inside. I think he's innovating that position a little bit. DeMarcus Lawrence from Dallas, he's fun to watch. He plays so aggressively, and the cross chop move he uses is one that I definitely want to add to my game.
You know, so in thinking about your brother and your dad and your uncle all being first-round picks, what is it about the Bosa name and the family where football is the family business?
I mean, when you have my dad who was a first-round pick and then my mom's brother who's the next year the 16th pick to the Dolphins, I mean, obviously those genes are going to create something that somebody who could play ball pretty well. So, I mean, I got to thank them for the genes, but you could have great genes and you could not put them to work, and I've really been working hard my whole life for this.
So when it comes to competitiveness, as a scout, we love legacy. And so the fact that your brother went a few years ago, one of the top players in the draft, how competitive is that battle between you and he when it comes to what you guys are able to do on the field?
I don't know if it's competitive as in just trying to beat each other. I think it's just trying to be the best that we could be together. And I think next year joining him in the NFL, it might get a little more competitive now that we're at the same league, same level. It'll be interesting for sure.
Talking about your brother, and you've heard it all, and I don't want you to have to hear it. I want you to see it because I see so much similarity, and we have a tape I can show you here. Sometimes it struggles. I struggle to find comp tape sometimes. This one was pretty easy. Just watch you do your work, and then we'll get a chance to see Big Brother do his. So what part of your game would you attribute to Joey? To me, I see the hands, but just that swipe move that you guys have is pretty unique.
Yeah, I mean, we've had the same coach, Coach Larry Johnson. He's taught us a lot of the same technique. It's just all about playing fast, using your hands, setting tackles up with speed and power, so it's not just one-dimensional.
You know, Nick, I just talked to your dad, and he said that you are a product of your brother being so hard on you. True story?
I mean, that's a lot of little brothers, I feel like. I mean, when you're beat up from the second you could do anything competitive, he's whooping my butt, so he's set me up for success. He's paved the way. I'm just following it.
And are you going to go to Nashville, by the way? Are we going to see you out there?
I will be in Nashville, yeah.
All right. Is this a flashy dress code, or are we going to be more conservative and laid back? I mean, you've got some Florida in you. I would have think that you're going to color it up a little bit.
I got some tricks up my sleeve, literally up my sleeve, so you'll see.
Oh, okay.
I would say I don't think Nick loves interviews, Buck. I don't think he loves to talk. He's more of a man of action. Very few words there. But all business is the way I would describe Nick.
All business, and it shows. It actually shows in his play. When you watch him play, he is a guy that, he relentless motor, no nonsense, takes care of business, does the things that you expect him to do when it comes to kind of setting the tone for the defense. And so that's why he's one of the best players in the draft. And in fact, he's one of those guys that is so intriguing that you could put him anywhere at the top of the draft and say that this team would be a great fit for him, be it the San Francisco 49ers, where he plays as an edge rusher opposite D Ford. If you think about dropping to the New York Jets and letting Greg Williams have him as kind of a toy to kind of do things with in that 46 defense that they may run in New York, or for whatever reason, if he were to drop to the Oakland Raiders, just being a guy that kind of sets the tone and eventually kind of makes them forget about Khalil Mack. Terrific player, a guy that can be a dominant pass rusher at the next level.
So for me, for my money, I have Nick Bosa as the top player in the entire draft, Buck. I know where you have him as a pass rusher, as an edge rusher. Is he the best football player in the draft? I'm going to put you on the spot.
Ooh, that's tough, man. I don't know if he's the best football player. He's in the top 3. To me, the best football player in the draft for my money is Quinnen Williams from Alabama. But I think Nick Bosa definitely is in the conversation. I think if you had a little more history in terms of the resume from his final season, I would be able to kind of rubber stamp him. I do believe he's a dominant player, though.
I ended up with Nick as a top player over Quinnen, and it was close. Just because when I've seen Nick on the field, and you saw it 2 years ago as well as a little bit that we saw him this year, he's the best pass rusher in the draft for my money, just in terms of his complement of skills and everything he possesses to get after the quarterback. And in a quarterback-driven passing league, to me, he's the most valuable asset to get to that guy. So that's why I have Bosa as the best player in the draft. But I love Quinnen Williams to death. And trust me, when you're with Quinnen Williams, Buck, he looks like he's 15 years old. I think the best is yet to come for him going forward. Both those guys, I think, are going to be fantastic. I mean, if we're going to go ceiling and floor, I guess if somehow the Cardinals don't take Kyler Murray, as we all think they will, the ceiling would be the first pick. But I would say we both are in the camp that will probably be Kyler Murray. So then realistically, it goes for me 2 to 4, right? I don't think he's going to get past 3. So if I'm going to be really honest with you,
he won't be in the green room long. I know that.
To me, he's going to be the second or third pick in the draft. And for my money, I believe he'll be the second pick. I'm not putting it in pen yet, but it's in that it's in the mechanical pencil where it's a little difficult to erase. You know, like I think he's going to be the second pick. I feel pretty good about that.
Yeah, I mean, he's a terrific player. He'll be in the green room max 30, 45 minutes. He's coming off the board quickly. He could be anywhere from 1 to 4. And if he's to 4, something has to happen that is major.
Well, one thing would have to happen is that people have to get up to get a quarterback. Yeah. If he's going to go 4, it's because it's going to go quarterback in the first 2. That's the only reason. And even if that happened, I think the Jets would take him at 3. Look, I think he's going 2 or 3. I think that's where it all stands there for Mr. Bosa.
Click here to subscribe to the NFL YouTube channel and click here to subscribe to the Move the Sticks podcast.